There's something special about the foods we make this time of year. Recipes that are passed down, full of tradition, and tied to meaningful moments. Today, I'm making a Jamaican Easter bun, but I'm also going to show you how I adapt a traditional recipe using freshly milled flour. And if you've been wondering how to start converting your own recipes, this is a really simple, practical way to begin. Hi friends, welcome back to For Your Heart and Home. Right now we're in the middle of a series on freshly milled flour, learning how to use it in a way that feels simple and doable. But today we're stepping a little outside that series to make something special for Easter. And as we go, I'll show you how I take a traditional recipe and gently adapt it for using freshly milled flour. So the recipe I'm using originally calls for 2 cups of all-purpose flour, but today I'm using freshly milled flour. I'm going to instead use 1.5 cups of soft white wheat and 1/2 cup of hard white wheat. I will have the recipe linked in the description box for you so that you will have it as a reference point. So to make this Easter bun, again, I'm going to be using a mix of soft white wheat and hard white wheat, and this is a really helpful place to start when you're converting recipes. When you're working with freshly milled flour, you want to think about the texture you're trying to achieve. Soft white wheat gives you a softer, more tender result, which is perfect for something like this. And the hard white wheat adds just a little structure so the bun holds together nicely. I am going to mill the wheat directly into my bowl, and while it is milling, I'm going to be adding the following ingredients: 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon allspice, 1/2 teaspoon salt, and 1/2 teaspoon ground ginger. That takes care of the dry ingredients. The wet ingredients will include 1 cup of rum or wine. I'm using a Jamaican red wine, and I had my fruits soaking in this wine for several months. And so if this is something that you'd like to do and you're going to be adding fruits to your bun, which is a traditional addition, I would have the fruits soaking at least 48 hours ahead of time when you go to make the bun so that they will be nice and tender in the finished product. So my wet ingredients will include 1 cup of Jamaican Red Label wine. I will be using turbinado sugar, and so when I use this kind of sugar, the granules are bigger, and so I tend to cut back on the amount of sugar that I'm using. So I'm using anywhere from about 1/2 cup to a 3/4 cup of brown sugar. I'm also going to be using 1/2 cup of molasses because that's going to give my recipe some depth, and a 1/4 cup of honey. My daughter is here helping me today, so if you see different hands jumping in, you'll know that we're both in the kitchen working together to bring this traditional recipe together. I will also be adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 1 egg, and 1.5 cups of wine-soaked dried fruits like I mentioned before. You can add more or less depending on your liking. Again, I will have this linked in the description box below for reference. As I start mixing this together, one thing I always keep in mind is that freshly milled flour absorbs more liquid than regular flour. So if your batter or dough feels a little thick, don't be afraid to adjust. I'm also going to be putting a little bit of milk in here, and you will see that I need to do that to thin the batter out just a bit. You can just add a small amount of liquid at a time until it feels just right. The thing with freshly milled flour is you sort of kind of have to go with your gut feeling. If you've been baking for many years, you're going to look for texture over the amount you're using. So I would say go with your gut. Add a small amount of liquid each time and adjust accordingly. Another simple tip that makes a big difference is I like to let my batter rest for about 10 or 15 minutes before baking. This gives the flour time to really absorb the liquid, and it really helps to improve the texture of the final product. If you listen to anybody who's talking about freshly milled flour on the internet, you should hear them telling you to let your batter or your dough rest because it needs to absorb that liquid. Sometimes you'll hear the term autolyzing, but you have to give your batter time to soak up that liquid so that you have the texture you're looking for in the final product. And when you're mixing, you don't want to overmix. Just stir until everything is combined. Freshly milled flour does best with a gentle hand. So as I'm getting this ready for the oven, this is where you'll start to notice that the texture might look just a little different than what you're used to. It can be slightly more hearty, and that's completely normal. That's part of what makes freshly milled flour so nourishing, satisfying, and filling. If you're wondering how to apply this to your own recipes, here's a really simple way to think about it. For softer baked goods like muffins, cakes, or something like this bun, lean more towards soft wheat. In my previous videos, I shared that soft wheat usually gets baking powder or baking soda. For breads that calls for yeast or even sourdough, you'll use a more hard wheat. And if you're not sure, just start with a blend and lean more towards what you're making. Like I'm doing here. I knew I was making a bun. I knew I was going to be using baking powder, so immediately I had to pull for a soft wheat. However, I knew that my bun needed some structure, and so I wanted to add in a bit of the hard wheat so that it would have that structure that is synonymous with this kind of baked good. So now this is ready to go into the oven. This is what it looks like fresh out of the oven. You can see the texture. It's really soft, but still holds together beautifully. The finishing touch here will be a nice and simple glaze that's made with butter and honey. I simply warmed it on the stove, and now I'm going to drizzle it over the finished product. And the longer this sits, the more developed the flavor will be. So if you make this ahead of time, so if, for example, if you're serving this for Easter or if you're serving this for some other special occasion, if you can make it a day or even 2 days ahead of time, that will give your loaf time to really soak in all of those flavors and give you a very beautiful end result. If you've been following along with the Fresh from Milk Flour series, this is such a good example of how you can start. You don't have to change everything all at once. You don't have to chuck all your recipes and get something new. You can take the recipes you already love and slowly begin adapting them. Start simple, make small adjustments, and learn as you go. Thank you so much for being here today. And if you try this recipe, or if you're starting to experiment with fresh from milk flour, I would love to hear how it's going for you. So let me know down in the comment section what you're doing, what you're making, how are you spending time with your family during this holiday season. I look forward to seeing your comments, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.